When colonial powers grab territory, it usually stays separate from the lands of the metropole. India was a part of the British Empire, but not a part of Britain. The Philippines were a part of the Spanish Empire, but not Spain. But when the French first conquered Algeria, it wasn't long until it was incorporated into France proper, not as a colony, but just as much a part of France as Normandy or Corsica. And given just how irregular this was, why did France do this? Why was Algeria a part of France itself and not a colony? So, as of 1827, this region was known as the Regency of Algiers, which officially was an Ottoman puppet state, but realistically it was independent. During the Napoleonic Wars, Algiers had provided food for Napoleon's armies, and 25 years later, its leaders were calling in the debt. France said no, tempers flared, and King Charles X blockaded the country to get its leaders to submit. They did not. This problem was timed well for King Charles, who was in a bit of trouble back at home, and so to divert attention away from him, he ordered the invasion of the region. The Algiers military was defeated quickly, but guerrilla-style resistance would carry on long afterwards. In case you're wondering, this expedition did little for Charles, since he would be gone soon afterwards, but his successor, Louis Philippe, would oversee the conquest of these lands until 1848, which was a year in which, well, stuff happened. One of these stuff was when King Louis Philippe was unkingified and the Second French Republic was proclaimed. A new republican constitution was drafted, which importantly proclaimed that these areas in Algeria were formerly a part of France. The primary reason for this was that the creators of the constitution were worried that the ongoing instability in France could end up losing them Algeria. They were concerned that either the Ottomans or another European power would make an attempt to take it from them, or that whoever was appointed to govern it may side against the government if there was another revolution. As such, it was divided into 3 administrative sections and made a formal part of the country. And you would expect that as an integral part of this new republic, the Algerians would be given the same rights as any other Frenchman, but fun fact, no. Despite being a part of France proper, citizenship was reserved for 2 groups. Those called the Pied Noirs, the descendants of French and European settlers, and in 1870, after Napoleon III reformed the government, Algeria's native Jewish population. There were 2 reasons for this. The first was money, since the Jewish Algerians would be expected to pay taxes to fund things like wars against Prussia. And second, by making hundreds of thousands of Algerians French, he gave them a stake in preserving French rule there, meaning that there would be allies if things ever got interesting. The Muslims of Algeria got nothing and were only considered to be French subjects. And they were, by and large, treated the exact same as the natives in any other French colony, like in neighbouring Tunisia or Morocco. So what changed? Well, the process of France losing Algeria was a slow one. There were no attempts to placate or help the native Muslims of the region until it became clear that there was a risk of losing Algeria for good. At first, it was believed that the ideals of the French Revolution and the superiority of French culture were so obvious that the native population would slowly but surely assimilate and become French themselves. Shockingly, this didn't happen, but after 2 world wars, the French population wanted to recognize the contributions of Algerians to the wars. Thus, in 1947, the French government gave citizenship and thus voting rights to Muslims in Algeria. Too late for any of that, though, since many of those living there wanted the French gone, and so it was time for war. The French fought incredibly hard to keep their colony, since it didn't want to abandon the idea of its civilizing mission, nor did it want to accept that it couldn't defend the French living in Algeria. The problem was that bullets don't care about your pride, and once the death toll started to rise, it became clear that France couldn't hold the territory. Numerous governments fell over the issue, and in the end, it was only Charles de Gaulle whose prestige allowed him to admit defeat and retain any popularity that Algeria's position as a former part of France came to an end.